Welcome to Hardwood Handicappers with Zach Cohen, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Zachary Cohen, VSiN.com senior editor with another episode of Hardwood Handicappers. Hardwood Handicappers is sponsored by Better Picks, the fantasy app that turns your basketball takes into cash. Download the Better app and use code VSINPOD to get $10 free. No deposit needed. That's VSINPOD, VSINPOD. We have a link for that in the description. I just want to start off by saying I hope everybody had a great holiday. I enjoyed my time with my family. We watched a lot of the games. We made some pizzas. It was good. I do have a lot of takeaways from yesterday's games, so I just want to get right into those before we kind of talk about today's picks. But I do have a lot of picks, so if that's what you came here for, I hope you keep listening and get through these takes with me. But I want to start with the Knicks facing the Cavaliers. New York rallied back from 17 down in the final 10-26 to come away with, a big win at Madison Square Garden. But I actually do believe that my bigger takeaway from that game, more so than the Knicks, finding a way to come back, in an impressive comeback, was that the Cavaliers kind of looked like themselves again for most of that game. And I do think that this team is starting to turn the corner because, in the two games they played before this, I thought that they looked great offensively. And then they got Evan Mobley back last game. He came back way earlier than expected. It wasn't even on my radar looking at the Christmas Day games when I did the Christmas Day preview, both for, this podcast and my write-ups at VSiN.com. I did not have any idea that Mobley would be back, but he came back from that calf strain. I thought he looked pretty good, and I do think that Cleveland now is starting to look a little bit dialed in, and I think that they're going to make, a nice little run here the rest of the season, and I do think they're going to be a factor in the Eastern Conference when all is said and done. I think you saw yesterday just these teams match up really well with one another, and it is an interesting kind of clash of styles. And I think that in a 7-game series, it could really go either way if Cleveland is playing its best basketball. So I thought yesterday was a really good step in the positive direction for the Cavaliers. The second game, we saw the Spurs beat the Thunder in OKC in a game where, the Thunder were laying 9.5. I always thought that was a little bit crazy, but I do understand that a lot of people viewed it as a major bounce back revenge spot. San Antonio had just beat OKC by 20 points in San Antonio 2 nights before. They are now 3-0 against the Thunder on the season. So I think, people thought that the Thunder would kind of just flash their championship medal and just kind of, get back in that, season-long head-to-head series. But the Spurs had other plans, and I really do think that this is a matchup that favors San Antonio in a big way. I don't know that they would get it done in a best-of-7 series, but I think that we've all season long, like I said this a few times on this podcast, people phrase the question of who's going to win this NBA championship, of can anyone beat OKC? And I do think the answer is yes. And I think that it's unequivocally yes with, the Spurs now. You beat a team 3 times in a row. You could beat them in a best-of-7 series. Maybe I would still favor OKC in that series, but I like the way that those Spurs guards can attack the basket no matter who's on them. And I think that, you have some great perimeter defenders on OKC, but you still see Fox, Harper, and Castle getting into the paint whenever they want. You see Wemby kind of dominating his matchup with Chet Holmgren, and it just kind of looks like the Spurs can, score when they want to against this great OKC defense because their shooting has been a lot better than expected this season. And the Spurs have a really good way of defending this Thunder team, which is, just kind of hold your own against everybody but Shea. And I do think that OKC has a bit of a shot-making problem, which we've seen going back to last year's playoffs in big, tight games that are, very physical. This Thunder team kind of disappears offensively, and they were able to win last year's, NBA Finals, but they had a lot of help when they did it. Like, there were some banged up teams along the way. I still think that the Pacers might have beaten them in that Game 7 and really changed the way that we were talking about this team this season. And I just overall do not have the level of trust that other people do in OKC. And I actually think that yesterday's result kind of had everybody starting to think the same way, looking at this team with a bit of a side eye. So I do think that there's value when you look at, other teams to win the NBA title. If you like the Spurs, like the numbers are still pretty strong, 16-1 to win the NBA title, 10-1 to win the West. But I'd personally be looking at Denver plus 850. I mean, Denver beat Minnesota last night in a game where Joker has the first 50, 15, and 15 triple-double in NBA history. Actually finished the game with 56 points, 16 rebounds, and 15 assists. Obviously, that game went to overtime. He was able to, put up some more numbers there, but just a masterful performance. And it was a performance that, in the context of like OKC struggling, can somebody else win? Seeing the Jamal Murray and Joker two-man game, late in the game, just kind of destroy a very good Minnesota defense, that just had me thinking, like, this is a team that could absolutely win the NBA Finals again. And this is a team that was playing without Christian Brown, without Aaron Gordon, and now without Cam Johnson, who's out for 4 to 6 weeks with an injury of his own. This team continues to win games shorthanded, and it's because Joker and Murray are so special. Mostly Joker, but Murray being back to 100% health after being a little bit banged up to start last season has completely changed the ceiling for this team. And I do think that, Denver would be my pick to win the NBA Finals as of today. And I should mention we're recording this on December 26th at 11:20-ish a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, that is my pick to win the Finals as of right now. I mean, I could always change it. I like to see how teams are playing and just kind of look at, advanced stats profiles and stuff. But I'm really buying into what we're seeing from Denver, and I'm a bit of a seller on OKC. So that's the way that I viewed those two games. I mean, the other two games were not really too, monumental when looking at the big picture for the NBA season. I mean, the Rockets beat the Lakers 119-96. Lakers continue to struggle defensively. This team is just an absolute nightmare on that end of the floor. And JJ Redick called out his team after the game. He said that Saturday's practice is going to be uncomfortable for those players, but I'm interested in seeing what that means, because I think the biggest problems in terms of looking at that lineup defensively are Luka Doncic and LeBron James. So if Redick going to just go into that practice and light those two up in front of the entire team, I have my doubts about that. And I have my doubts about whether or not this team can fix that defense just on the fly with the current personnel. I think that they're going to need to make a move. I don't know what that move looks like, but it does seem problematic. And to be honest, like, as great of a player as LeBron James is, it's been worse since he came back. And I do think that that's something to monitor moving forward, because LeBron is kind of looking like himself, at least offensively. I think he's looked a lot better, ever since we, had him, break that double-digit scoring streak. I think that, he's kind of put to bed all the, questions about what he looks like offensively. But it is still a team that has two great offensive players in Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic. And I don't know that you need LeBron's offense that much when you're talking about what he gives you on the other end of the floor, which is a negative presence right now. So I think that this is a team that has a lot of flaws, and they're probably going to continue to be solid in the regular season. And I do think they're going to end up winning the division. I made that play a couple weeks ago, and I stand by it. But I don't think this team has a ceiling of, getting to the Western Conference Finals or really anything. I think that their defense is going to expose them if they don't make any moves. The other game that I have not talked about yet from yesterday, it was the Warriors beating the Mavs 126-116. This is the only game of the day that I think I had a really bad read on, but it was a game where Golden State covered. Anthony Davis left with a groin injury again. But I think that the major takeaway, and it's kind of something I said I wanted to talk about on Wednesday, was Cooper Flag goes for 27 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Might have had that backwards. On a national stage, I think this is the first time that a lot of people were really watching him. And I just thought he looked spectacular, as he kind of has all season. And I do think that it's a really interesting Rookie of the Year conversation, because he's now moved to minus 300. I think a lot of that has to do with, more people seeing him play at that level. He's been doing it for a few weeks now. I've been talking about it on this podcast a lot, probably ad nauseum. And I do think that this is a guy that is running away with this award. But I should kind of mention that, like, some of the podcasters that I listen to, and specifically I was listening to the Zach Lowe show with J. Kyle Mann on the other day. And I thought it was interesting that they brought up Rookie of the Year. They said, who do you think would win as of this moment? They both had Con Knipple, and it sounded like it was pretty convincing. They did leave open the possibility of, Flag ending up stealing it because he is playing well. But it's something that I feel like I've talked about in almost a definite sense. Like, I think that Flag is running away with this award, has been the best rookie. And I think that I talk about it maybe a little bit too strongly. And maybe not anymore at minus 300, but I just kind of wanted to say that, like, while I feel really strongly about Flag being the Rookie of the Year, I do not have a vote, and maybe voters feel differently, but I think it's trending towards Flag being the runaway Rookie of the Year, just because I do think that what we've seen from him over the last 2-3 weeks is something that we're going to see the rest of the season. It doesn't look fluky whatsoever, and I've mentioned this before, like, it's nothing that Khan's doing wrong. Khan continues to play really well for the Hornets, and he is an awesome player. It's just one of these guys is serving as more of a number 3, number 2 on their team. That's Khan. And Davis is serving as a number 1 on a Dallas team that's all of a sudden pretty competitive. And I think that, when you see a player in their rookie season playing like an all-star, which Flag has for now the better part of 2-3 weeks now, I think that player is going to win Rookie of the Year. So I think that if he avoids injury, if nothing major changes, I do think we're trending towards, Flag running away with this. And it does kind of remind me of a few years ago when, Wemby was kind of playing worse than Chet to start the season, but a little bit, maybe 2-3 months into the year, Wemby kind of leaped him, whatever that is, in Rookie of the Year odds, and ended up winning the award pretty convincingly by the end of the season because people knew that's where it was going. I feel like we know that this is where it's going with Flag. So that's the reason that I speak about it almost indefinite, but I do think that you're going to hear some people over the next few weeks still continue to praise Knipple. So if you get confused, that's why. I just think we're trending towards Flag winning, and I think you're seeing now the odds reflecting that. All right, well, let's move on to tonight's game because there are a lot of them. It is a pretty good slate. The only games I'm going to skip tonight are Raptors, Wizards, and Clippers, Blazers. The first one, because Toronto has just been a really tough team to read lately. I have nothing for that game. No sides, no totals, no player props I'm eyeing. Clippers, Blazers, I have a really strong lean to LA because we've seen them play well over the last, week. I don't want to say week or two, definitely just week, but we've seen them beat now the Rockets and Lakers in convincing fashion. It's starting to feel like this team is, turning a corner. Meanwhile, the Blazers are struggling, but I just have no trust in Los Angeles right now. If I did, this would be a game that I'd probably be hammering them just looking at the spread because it is 1.5, 2.5. And I think the Clippers are a much better basketball team. But what I saw early in the year makes it hard for me to believe that in a road game, I could trust that this team's effort level is going to be there. So I'm skipping it. It's a stay away game for me for now. Hopefully, LA kind of rounds things out and, gets things hashed out over the next couple of weeks and becomes an easier team to read. But we're going to start with Heat Hawks because that's a game where I do have a lot of interest. I think that this is a game where the Hawks are laying 3.5, totals 247.5. And as high as that number is, I'm going over, and I got a worse number on it than you can as of this recording. I took over 248 at -112. As I just mentioned, at DraftKings Sportsbook at this moment, it is 247.5. So I think you're going to beat my number. I don't like going over on numbers like this, but it's really hard not to when you look at the fact that this Hawks team has gone over a 249 number in 3 of the last 4 games. And those were all 3 of the games that Trae Young has played. He sat the one that didn't. And over the last 12 games, a stretch where they've gone over 249 or 249 plus in 7 of the last 12, they are playing at the fastest pace in the entire NBA. And this, this makes this a matchup between a Hawks team that has been playing at the fastest pace in the NBA over a stretch, and then a Heat team that's playing at the fastest pace in the NBA over the entire season. I just don't see this being a game where either team is going to really take the defensive end of the floor very seriously. I think it's going to be go, go, go in terms of pace. And I just think we're going to be hoping for some shots to fall. And I think that there are enough shot makers in this game that if it's an up and down game played at an outrageous pace where shots are just flying, we're going to see another crazy score. I mean, this is a Hawks team that we saw go for 300 plus in a game with the Bulls 2 games ago. I mean, there's just no commitment to defense at all. And that's one of the reasons that, like, when I talk about this Atlanta team moving forward, I'm completely out on them because it's just really strange watching this team play and seeing the players that they have on the wings, and even Okongwu, a player that I like defensively at the center spot, maybe a little bit undersized, but I think he competes. I think he has good instincts. It's just crazy that this team has such an offensive-minded identity when they have so many defensive-minded players, and I just don't understand it. Like, I've always really liked Quinn Snyder as a coach. I think he's doing a really bad job with the Hawks. I know that they generate really quality shots. You look at some of their shot quality numbers, it says that his offense is working. But I want this team to give a crap a little bit on the defensive end and focus a little less on offense. And maybe that's a symptom of having Trae Young on the team, but I don't think it is because I think I saw a lot of this when Young was out too. I've mentioned that I think that Young has a poor rep, and I just don't really understand it. I think it's a I don't know. It might be a Snyder problem. I feel like I'm like the only one in the world that believes that, but that's personally what I see watching this team. I just don't think that they have anywhere near the defensive level that his Jazz teams were able to get to. And maybe that's because they don't have Rudy Gobert, but I think this team should be much better defensively. I think that the scheme should be better. And I think that they should be playing a little bit slower on offense too, to kind of just let the defense set and just make things a little bit more of a grind out game. But yeah, sorry, I should mention over 248 is my play. You can get over 247.5 as of right now. I think this game is going to be outrageously high scoring. Moving on to Hornets at Magic. The Magic are laying 5.5 points. The total is 230.5 in this game. I would be leaning Magic here. I think the Hornets have played pretty well lately, but I do think that this is a game where Orlando, even without Franz Wagner and potentially Jalen Suggs, who's listed as doubtful here, should find a way to get the job done. I do trust the Magic defensively to kind of get enough stops against the Hornets. And I think that offensively, I've been really impressed with this team lately. I think that, there was a lot of question marks about what this system would look like with Jamal Mosley this year because it's been ugly. And earlier in his tenure, he's been really just a strict defensive coach ever since he's gotten, this opportunity with Orlando. But bringing Bane in has definitely unlocked his playbook a lot. And I love the way the ball moves on this team. I like the shots that they get. I mean, I wish that they made a few more of them, but that's a personnel problem. That's not a Mosley problem. And I do think against a really weak Hornets defense, you're going to see a strong effort from the Magic offensively. And that's actually why my only play on this game right now is Paolo Banchero over 24.5 points at -120. I think Banchero has gone 3 straight games without scoring 25 plus. So maybe not playing great right now, maybe not in the best of form, but I do think this is a really good matchup for him because Charlotte is 24th in the NBA defending around the basket. Banchero scores nearly half of his points at the rim. He's a big body player. He definitely likes to drive to the rim. He's not necessarily a post-up player. He's not a true big, more of, just a big kind of wing, but, with perimeter skills. But I do think that he's going to get himself to the basket and score a lot in the paint here. And I'll also mention that the Hornets are pretty weak when it comes to guarding pick and roll ball handlers and post-ups. And while Banchero is not a primary player when looking at either of those, he has a very versatile skill set. They use him in a lot of different ways. He's going to run some PNRs. He's going to get some post-up opportunities. I think he can cash in on a few of them. And I do think that overall, Orlando is going to lean on him a little bit in this game because, like I said before, Franz is out. Suggs is probably out. Anthony Black has been great coming in for Suggs. I was actually looking at his props as well. But I ultimately landed on Banchero because his minutes restriction is lifted. I think that with a bigger workload against a bad defense, he's going to bounce back and start scoring, some big numbers soon. I think that this game, 25 plus is very reasonable to expect from him. Looking for the perfect holiday gift or a smarter way to bet the biggest games of the season, VSiN's holiday special gives you VSiN Pro access through May 1st for just $79. You'll get daily best bets, real-time betting splits on DraftKings and Circa, AI-powered prop tools, and 24/7 video on the VSiN Watch app, covering everything from bowl season and the NFL playoffs to March Madness and the Masters. Plus, you'll get our college football playoff betting guide featuring expert playoff brackets, power ratings, college football playoff and bowl game best bets, and access to every game preview we do over on VSiN.com. Give yourself the gift of smarter betting. Head to vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. I think that's a fantastic offer. I've been doing a lot of those bowl game write-ups. I've been doing pretty well with my bowl games. Hopefully keep that up with the Saturday games. I wrote up a bunch of those. So head over to vsin.com if you have interest in that. But also, if you have interest in NBA, obviously I do all my stories there. I do a story on sides and totals, do a story on player props. I always have a little bit more there than I do in the podcast. And then also Steve Makinen does a great job of covering the NBA. We have every other sport covered, like I've mentioned a few times on this podcast. Tennis starting soon. I'll be doing a lot of that. But then also our tremendous shows. So on the VSiN Watch app, you could be watching 24/7 betting content from people that I really, really like to listen to. Very sharp betting minds. Let's move on now to Celtics at Pacers. This game tips at 7 p.m. Eastern. This is a game where I'm going with another player prop. Again, I'm going with Jaylen Brown over 29.5 points at -108. I don't really like taking these superstar totals and going high over on high numbers, but it's been a little bit hard lately. I mean, Brown has scored 30-plus points in 7 consecutive games, and he's done so in 10 of the last 11 as well. He also had 31 against this Indiana team a few nights ago, December 22nd, and it was a pretty inefficient shooting night for him. So there's room to improve in a matchup that I absolutely love for him. This Indiana team is horrible when it comes to guarding some of Jaylen Brown's best spots. Like when you look at like his heat map and his shot diet, it's a perfect matchup for him. I mean, he shoots a lot of long mid-range jumpers, shots that, probably, coaches don't normally want their players to take, but Brown's really good at them. Scores 24% of his points on long mid-range twos. And this Pacers team is 27th in the league at guarding that spot on the floor. They're also a bottom 10 team in the league when guarding shorter mid-range shots and shots at the rim, and those make up 50% of his scoring. So I just think that Brown's going to get to his spots, have good opportunities to score. And then I'll also mention the Pacers are also very bad when it comes to defending pick and roll ball handlers. isolation scores and putting, players on the line. Brown could do all of that stuff. So I just love this matchup for him. I should have said the total in this game is 221.5. Spread is Celtics -8.5. Definitely expected to be a little bit lower in scoring, but Brown is such a big part of this Boston offense that he's going to get his shot attempts. And I really like him to have 30 plus points tonight. I think that's a really reasonable ask, even though it is a very high number, as I mentioned. I've been doing it a little bit more lately, have done it mostly with Jalen Brunson, but I've hit it both times I've done it. I think that Brown could do it as well. Moving on to 76ers at Bulls. This is a game where the Sixers are laying 1.5. Total is 240.5. It's a really hard game to call when you're looking at sides and totals. I'm not sure who's going to be out there tonight. VJ Edgecombe and Joel Embiid are both questionable. Embiid did almost suffer a very serious knee injury, went down, was screaming in pain, had to go to the locker room, but it sounds like he avoided a big one, and there's actually a chance that he'll play today. That's a great sign for Philadelphia, but I don't know what to make of this game because Embiid's questionables are harder to read than anybody. His questionables are more questionable than any player in the NBA. I don't know what to do with it, but I do think that this is a game that if everybody's healthy, I would expect the 76ers to win and would probably be willing to lay 2.5 or 3 if I had to do it, but I'm staying away from the sides and totals here. The play that I am putting in is VJ Edgecombe over 15.5 points at -118. I mentioned he's questionable. That stinks, but if he doesn't play, there's really no harm. You'll just get your play voided. You will not lose anything. If he does play, though, it's an awesome matchup. I mean, the Bulls are the worst team in the league at defending at the rim. Edgecombe is an awesome driver and scores 36% of his points at the basket. So I think that he's a threat to finish a bunch at the basket. And they're also 21st in the league at guarding above the break threes. And that's where Edgecombe scores 40% of his points. So he's a really dangerous three-point shooter. He likes that part, the non-corners when shooting the three ball. And I think he could take advantage of the Bulls not guarding that area on the floor very well. And I'll also add that Chicago's a bottom 10 defense in the league when guarding in transition. They're a bottom 10 team in the league when guarding spot-up opportunities. Those are other places that Edgecombe kills teams. I mean, he's going to knock down some off the dribble jumpers, but he'll also get some spot-up looks. He'll be doing it on a part of the floor that he likes, and he's a blur in transition because of how fast and explosive he is. So I think this is a game where he should score 16 plus. I'd actually prefer that Embiid is out if we're talking about this play because I do think that they completely change their offensive identity when Embiid is out there. They play a little bit slower. I like when it's Edgecombe and Maxey just playing full, throttle, pedal to the metal, Fast and Furious basketball. I think that should be their nickname, Fast and Furious. But I do really like the way that they play when Embiid is out, and I think that Edgecombe can do a good job of scoring in this game if he's out. But either way, I like it. It's low enough that if Embiid's out there, I still think he can find a way to get to the number 16 plus. That's very, very low. Moving on to 2 games I'm lumping together because I am going to parlay them. It is Bucks at Grizzlies at 8 p.m. Eastern and Suns at Pelicans also at 8 p.m. Eastern. The spreads in those games are Suns -5.5 and Grizzlies -5.5. I'm parlaying the 2 favorites, the Grizzlies and the Suns money line at +123. I just really think that this Milwaukee team has been awful without Giannis, and I know that they're coming off a 17-point win over Indiana on the road. That was an impressive win, but this is a team that is 7-32 straight up as a road underdog under Doc Rivers. That is absolutely terrible. It means when they're expected to lose on the road, they pretty much always do. And this Grizzlies team might be getting Ja Morant back. That would help them in a game like this just because he would out-talent everybody by a pretty significant margin. But even if he doesn't play, I like the guard rotation, what we've seen without Morant. And Memphis has been very, very reliable when it comes to beating teams they're supposed to beat under Tomas Isolo. They are 14-4 straight up as a favorite, 8-2 straight up when facing teams with winning percentages between 25 and 40. If they're expected to win games, they pretty much always do, and they're playing at home in this one, so I would expect them to win. And I do think that the Suns will beat the Pelicans as well, because similarly, under Jordan Ott this season, Phoenix has been really good at taking care of business against bad teams. I know that the Pelicans are a team that I've said are pretty decent now, and they are, but the Suns are 9-2 straight up as favorites this year, 5-0 when playing as favorites of 3.5 to 9.5. They're just really, really good on both ends of the floor, and they're really well coached. They don't really have many players kind of straying away from the game plan on a nightly basis, and I think that's big against a team like New Orleans that does have minutes here and there where things get sloppy. And I'll also add that, the Cavaliers beat the Pelicans by 23 the other night. That's something that I would consider in a game like this because Jordan Ott actually helped build that Cavaliers offensive system. He's been an assistant with the Cavaliers before getting this head coaching job with the Suns. And I just kind of wonder if New Orleans is going to have trouble defending this Phoenix offense. And I do think that we're going to see Devin Booker and Mark Williams especially have some big games. And Dylan Brooks has been fantastic for the Suns as well. So I would expect the Suns' ability to execute on both ends of the floor to help them win out. I would say that this is probably going to be the closer of the two games. I mean, maybe it won't be. It doesn't really matter, honestly. But I think that this one will be a bit of a sweat if we are, looking good in the first of the two. But they're at the same time, so it'll just be a double sweat. You'll want to pull up your multi-view for this one. But, yeah, Grizzlies money line over the Bucks, Suns money line over the Pelicans. That's a two-team parlay that I got at plus 123. Hopefully you can get the same number. And then moving on to the final game that I want to talk about, it's Pistons at Jazz at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. This is a game where I actually took the Jazz plus 10. I just think that with no Larry Markin on the injury report right now, it's really hard to get there with Utah being a double-digit underdog at home. I just really think that this team has been very reliable when it comes to betting on them at home under Will Hardy. And the numbers back that up. They're 72-45 against the spread as underdogs of 3.5 to 9.5 under Hardy. So they're pretty good in the big underdog role in general, but 56-38 against the spread as home underdogs as under Hardy. And this is also a game where like you look at kind of the advanced stats for the season and, the Pistons have a plus 4.5 road net rating. That's much worse than their actual net rating on the season. I should pull that up quickly just to kind of see exactly what it is. But on the entire year, 6.9, so plus 6.9. It's a little bit lower, maybe not too much, but it is lower. They are worse on the road. That's expected, but the Jazz are only minus 3.1 when playing at home as opposed to minus 7.3 overall on the year. And that gap is just not that big. So getting 10 points feels like a really big, spread, and it's one that I'm willing to take a chance on. I also kind of question like what Detroit's going to do defensively with Keontae George and Larry Markkinen if both of them are out there. I mean, George will be, according to the injury report. Markkinen also should be, according to the injury report, but they will sometimes throw him on there late and accept their fines if they have to because they are, pretty outwardly tanking. But hopefully we see both George and Markkinen. And if we do, I think George's speed and shiftiness will help him blow by the Pistons defenders, even though they are very good. And I think he has a good in-between game to score, either in the floater range or in the mid-range before having to get to, Duren or Isaiah Stewart, who are both very good rim protectors. And then Markkinen, I just think moving him off the ball, as they always do, they run him around like he's Klay Thompson, like he's prime Klay Thompson, and he's a bigger version of that. I think he could be a real weapon in this game, and he could also create a little bit for himself. So I just think this is a game where the Jazz offense is going to have some success against a very good Pistons defense, and I always have question marks about the Pistons offense. So I know that the Jazz are awful defensively, but maybe they'll look a little bit better in a game like this. I'm just playing the number. Like I know Detroit's a much better team than Utah, but Utah's a very difficult place to go and win by margin. And I think that the Jazz are a little bit more competitive this season than we've seen in recent years. So I like them to cover in this game. Before we wrap up with our best bets, I just wanted to say, if you're breaking down usage rates, defensive matchups, and pace, put that analysis to work on better picks. Pick more or less on player points, assists, and rebounds and track the number in real time. Use code VSiNPOD for $10 free, no deposit required. And with 1,000x multipliers, 2 sharp reads can turn into real payouts. Basketball just got better. Download Better and use code VSiNPOD. That's BETR and VSiNPOD, VSINPOD. I gave you a lot of player props today. Hopefully you jump on them with that $10 free. You don't have to risk anything. Maybe you'll win a little bit. I love free plays. They're the absolute best. But let's recap what I have for this Friday slate. It's the Heat Hawks over 248.5. It's over 248, sorry, not 248.5. And you can get 247.5. But I got that at minus 112. I have Paolo Banchero over 24.5 points at minus 120 versus the Hornets. Jaylen Brown over 29.5 points at minus 108 versus the Pacers. VJ Edgecombe over 15.5 points at minus 118 versus the Bulls. I have a parlay of Grizzlies money line versus the Bucks and Suns money line versus the Pelicans at plus 123. And then I have Jazz plus 10 at minus 110 versus the Pistons. So It was a big day on Thursday. I mean, I ended up winning a little bit less than I should have. I actually had really good reads on the games. If you were listening to the podcast and you saw my write-ups, I won most of those plays, but I ended up being a little bit greedy and adding some picks and didn't do too well on them, but still ended up profiting. Still, it's been a really good season for us. We're up a little bit more than 16 units on the year, and hopefully we keep building on that. But like I said, we have 6 plays tonight. Hopefully they go well. Good luck with your bets this Friday night. Have a great weekend. And if you want my picks on Saturday and Sunday, head over to VSiN.com and we'll catch you again with the podcast, Hardwood Handicappers, on Monday.